for a voice. Much appreciated. I don't want to wear this thing because I have someone else I'm going to turn it over to very quickly. I just want to say good evening and thanks for coming. My name is Jean Duché. I'm the Executive Director of the Behavioral Health Foundation. I'm extremely proud to be standing up here this evening to welcome our guest. And I don't want to belabor the point, but we have someone who can speak a hell of a lot better than I can. And he's about to do that. And he's here because exactly 4 weeks ago tonight, I took a risk. And this is something in this business of addictions treatment that we do a lot of. We take a lot of risks. We ask people to come through our doors and trust us enough to allow us to help them get through their tough times and to learn some new things about life. So 4 weeks ago, I was sitting at my computer at home and I had this whim and this need for knowledge, and I started looking up the history of my organization, and I knew a lot about it already because I have close friends who worked here many, many years ago as directors, and they were my mentors. But in my search for history, and in part is because we have a new staff member, Jonathan, who I really wanted to straighten him out about the history. I really wanted to say, I think you're wrong about this, and here's why. But anyway, in my search, David Berner's name kept coming up in my search for the X-Kalay history, and I said to myself, why not take a risk and email this gentleman and find out whether or not he will tell me the facts about X-Kalay. And that's why he's here tonight, because he answered my call. And within 2 days, we were speaking on the phone, and David was saying, I really need to come to Winnipeg and see the old X-Kalay Foundation. So here he is tonight. David is, in one word, a brilliant man. And he's going to tell you about his career with the organization and how he was willing to take risks in order for this place to exist. And other than that introduction, I want you to know that he does many, many things with his life that are very, very interesting. And for those of you who have had a chance to talk to him in the last 2 days while he was here, you are the lucky ones. And for the rest of you, I hope that someday you get that opportunity as well. David does many, many things. He is a very vocal person. He's been involved with the media, with broadcasting. He is an actor and a spokesperson for people who have not yet found their own voice. So with that introduction, David, would you begin, please?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yeah.
Are we good? Okay. So I think Jack Nicholson says that in a movie, doesn't he? Are we good? Are we good? Look, many of you believe, if you believe anything, that you're here for yourself. And that's a good place to start. You are here for yourself. But nobody stands alone in the world. And all of us come from somewhere. We all have families. We all belong to something, even though many nights we haven't felt like we belong to anything. So I'm going to tell you about the history of this institution, because I want you to have a sense that this didn't start at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and it's not ending at 9:30. This began in 1967, and it'll go on for many, many years. And I want you to have a sense that you are personally connected to the people who worked here before, who succeeded and failed, mostly succeeded, and that you are preparing the ground for the next guy and the next gal. You may think you're doing this for yourself, or for your mom, or for your son, but you're doing it for you and for people you have not yet heard of. That's why you are here. So I'm going to tell you the history, and I'm going to tell you about some individuals, most of whom were winners, some not. and I'll talk briefly about the present and the future. So, history. In the summer of 1966, I know that's a long time ago, a friend of mine said, you know, you should go talk to this thing called the Company of Young Canadians. And I said, the Company of Young Comedians? And he said, no, the Company of Young Canadians. Now that was an organization started by a prime minister named Lester Pearson, and it was a kind of domestic Peace Corps. Let's get some kids going out into the world in Canada and helping other people. We'll pay them a minimum wage and see if they can devote 2 years to helping people do something or other. My friend was a writer for the Vancouver Sun newspaper, but both he and I grew up here in Winnipeg. I grew up in the North End at St. John's and Salter. Went to St. John's High School. Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Yes. And my friend became famous. His name was Bob Hunter. He's since passed away, but he was the founder of Greenpeace. So he founded an amazing institution, but so did I. He said, go visit the Company of Young Canadians. And I said, what the hell for? And he said, well, they give money to people to do kooky things. And I said, okay. So I went and I met this guy. And this guy was unlike anybody I'd ever met before. Because I grew up in the North End of Winnipeg. And here's what the North End of Winnipeg was 50 and 60 years ago. It was all Germans, Jews, Ukrainians, and Poles. Everybody spoke with their hands. Everybody yelled. Everybody was volatile. Everybody argued. It was very funny. It was a wonderful place to grow up. I met this tall Englishman, very conservative, very quiet, you know. And I used to call him the Big Boy Scout. His name is Jeff. And more than anybody else, he's responsible for your being here, even though you've never heard of him. So I met him. And we sort of hit it off. He was an interesting guy. He's 15 years older than me. He's still alive. He's 81 years old. He lives on Salt Spring Island in a log house that he built with his own hands. And at the end of the conversation, I said, Jeff, you seem like a very nice guy, but I don't think you know what you're talking about. Which was very brash of me because I was 23 years old. And he said, well, actually, you're right, because we don't have anything going yet, because I just opened the office. So I said, well, I'm going to go to Mexico in about 3 days, and I'm going to smoke a lot of dope. And if I come back, which is unlikely, and if I have any brain cells, which is less likely, I'll come and see you again. And he said, that would be nice. And he told me later, he never expected to see me for a second. It never occurred to him that I would walk in again. So 4 months later, I walked in again. And he had just gone to the Pacific island of Tonga with his wife and infant, so we had a lot of travel stories to swap. When we tired of that, I said, so what have you got going? He said, look, here's 4 projects. Go home and read about them and tell me what you think. So I went to my apartment and I read these 4 projects. And I came back the next day and I said, you see these first 3? He said, yeah. I said, they're bullshit. They're nothing. They're just people talking about nothing. But this one is interesting. Well, what was this one? This one was Native Indians in the BC Penitentiary. How many of you have ever seen Stonewall? Stonewall is Disneyland compared to the BC Pen. The BC Pen was like Alcatraz. This was a serious prison. Okay? It's not there anymore. It's now condos overlooking the river. So I said, this is serious. These are Aboriginal people, and they want to get out, and they want to stay out, and they're not staying out. Do you know what the recidivism rate was in those days? The return to prison rate for Aboriginals? Take a guess. 70%. Who said 100? You win. 97%. 97% of all the male Aboriginals who came out of the BC Pen were back in a few days. It's a horrifying statistic.